yourself. So it's the same as for instruction. You want people to get something, or for example, you want to generate interest. So usually, if you generate interest, it means people are going to be curious. Let's get more, like even the novels. Most of the time, people get novels because of the cover, right? The way it looks. So most of the novels they have got beautiful covers. So inside that there are no pictures, but you discover somebody will take time. What novel are you reading? You just show the cover, and because it looks beautiful or attractive or something, So it's all about the same thing. Posters inform, educate, and communicate messages, right? Just like most of other forms of media, instructional media also. And I think we didn't talk about banners, but we'll talk about later. But you have also banners and we posters. Because when you think about banners are like the modified version of posters. It's like a poster. Now you have made it like a poster that you are having, like this one is a poster. You have decided to make it big, to be like this, to cover this area. That's like what a banner looks like, right? If you see the design of the banner, you see that it's not much different from how posters are designed, right? The only difference will be the platform now, whereby banners are going to be bigger, and usually they're going to be placed at the place whereby they could be managed to hang maybe somewhere, maybe on trees. You'll see those banners whereby people place banners on the roads. So you have that, but most of the functions will be the same, but you're going to differentiate them by the impact. To say if it's something is smaller, okay, what's the impact? If something is on the bigger platform, okay, what could be the impact? So it's subject to what you're thinking. You see, so you can just suggest the way you're thinking. Try to test yourself. If you can see something on the wall, right, and it's like this. If you can try to take this one and put it, let me say, on that building, could you be managed to read it? You have a problem. But if you can take the same one and make it larger like this, posters, maybe the way to look like the way that it's posted, put it a little bit far there. You discover when you look at it from afar, you could be able to read from afar, right? So those could be the differences. To say, okay, if you are using a poster or what could be, because the actual idea is the same, whereby you are trying to pass on information, all this. But for it to be in a different format, because there is a context of it, right? So I'm just selecting some of the very popular posters that saw the movies in the 90s. Then, okay, I think next I was supposed to come with billboards, but we'll come up later. Quickly, I'll just do this. Then you have got these. I think you have seen this before. If you want to know what these are, if you just go at the reception, you are going to see this. So either flyers and leaflets is another format, and you could decide that what could this the advantage of this. You see, it's a combination. This one is like having a little bit of like a poster element and a little bit of the other book element, like you're combining a poster and a book, right, in the one, right? But the difference is, these are usually small, right, and are handy. You will just take and give someone, and they will read it at their own free time. So these are small printed materials, usually folded by hand and distributed free of charge. So it means maybe you would think about the element of being cost effective. Cost effective and direct. Why are we saying cost effective? If you see the size of a leaflet, you can have, you can have like, let me say, Um, I mean, you could even make it a paper like this. You could even produce two of them, right? And so, and two, for the advantages, like you usually give them for free, whereby there's the motivation said because it's free. Because here that somebody said that Malawi has like free things. I don't know if it's true or not. If something is given for free, people are going to receive it. That's the I mean, the approach the Jehovah Witnesses, I think, he realized, right? That they might not like their religion, but since Malawians like getting free things, if we give them a free book, they're going to receive, right? So what they do, you say you don't like the religion, but when they give you a book, their book, you're just going to get it, right? I'm just so it's just like that. So this is the approach. What we say, okay. And you know, most of the time when you are talking about this, you don't expect someone to get it and read it. Uma kumpasa mutu oti ndi moja nawa, can you take them? Ama koteka mutai moja chikwa mbomo zotaka weleke somewhere, right? So it's an approach whereby you would decide to say, okay, maybe you want to have takeaways for these students. I can't give them books. Books are much more expensive, right? You can't say that the Alice did pasabuku, the mabuka is much more expensive. So what can you do? You just have leaflets, leaflets, specific areas, then and there is a thing of the reference. It's like you're going to produce one, and the way you do, you duplicate it, the material, right? So usually printed or unfolded into 4 or 6 or more pages, and the pliers and lifters go through the same process as we talked about. Because all these print materials, the process of coming up with these printed material are the same. The way we talked about books, the process is the same. They have to be an idea. They have to you have to decide on the font size. You have to decide on what image you are going to that is going to go with. You have to decide on the white space. Okay, what space is going to be. In short, just think about typography and graphic editing and designing, right? Designing, you have to think about fundamentals of or the principles of editing and design. Principles of it is like you work everything that you see in printed material, you work with that. Space that you see is not that the white space for nothing. It is designed to say, you know what? It's like you do it for a purpose. Because if you go to check principles of editing and design, right? A movement, for example, mtakagwira paper to say kuti ukagwira newspaper, kodi azapa kwerenga pati. It's not by chance, it's by design. The design, I think you know about designing, whereby by putting a headline yaikulu kwa bit, it means they are making you kuti ukatsegula paper lija uzafikire pa headline pachi. They are creating movement, kuti you open it uzafikira apa by putting an image yaikulu. They know kuti anthu ukafika uzapi uthamangira pati. There's no way you can say kuti you can have a newspaper or magazine. Pali picture chikulu koko, pali a small picture here. Then when you open, you can start with a small picture. It can happen. Automatically, you're going to go much bigger pictures you first. When you use a small picture. So what they do, design like a movement, it is in the graphic editing, or let me say typography, or editing and designing. The movement, you create it, you design it. That's why it's exactly what you do here with the type. If you are putting materials, okay, a story is a good story, but now you want people to read it. If you don't place it, design it well, and use proper characters, people will have a problem with it. So flyers, just one of them example, but then okay, we can have something like takeaways. It is takeaways. You are going to be doing instruction, but this can be given out. I saw like my brother brought something because I think it was given at his school. It was about mathematics. I think we had that during our time. Most of us who have pursued the maths, what they are doing, the same concepts you see like geometry, like triangles, all those concepts, I mean formulas. So they were giving them by cards. Cards are half of but the actual cards. So the cards you have maybe a triangle, then you have maybe formula triangle, and all those things. Then you have a rectangle. So you have all those things. So they are just shared. You can share it to the kids. With the kids, you tell them, you teach them, then you give them those as instructional material. So they'll be referring when they go, oh, look at them, oh, it's like this, which is going to aid them. That they all the time, this is going to have a board. Oh, so that will be a board. So it's one of the approach. So I'm just giving an example, like the way they are doing the flyers. Approach the same approach, whereby you give the material to them. So you have say schools, they use flyers. They use flyers and leaflets to announce school activities. I think we've seen even here. I don't know if it happens, but that one is advertising a school, right? But they can be used for school activities. To make a flyer, but I think nowadays you say that you see the activity, but even we change. But activities, I'm so you see the advantage of it, whereby of it. Then okay. Talk about what's the time now? Okay, newspapers. Then obviously, think about the newspapers. Among the print media, is taken as the most popular, right? And it is pointed out. Usually, as I said, because of its frequency, right, of publications, because the newspapers usually are printed daily, published daily, right? I don't think we have got other materials that are published daily for a mass number of people. So because of that, there is that popularity to do that. And I mean, here we have got, it's funny because the newspaper that we have in Malawi are not the ordinary papers, because what we have here, we have got the tabloids. What we have in the tabloids, because maybe I've seen the newspaper of America before. Chimakachi newspaper, quarter of this board, right? You have to fold it like this type of newspapers, right? These papers. One paper, it can be it's like this, newspaper. But here, I think after a period, we had a little bit bigger papers in the past, but now we have got these that we are having now. What we are having now are tabloids. These are broadsheets. These ones. Like even when you go to like first world countries like America, people who sleeps in the streets, they use the newspaper to make them warm. Because what happens, this, so one paper is thick. So when you read the newspaper, you are done. Now you find them, so because it's too cold, there's snow. So people who sleeps on the chairs in the streets, what they do, they take these newspapers, they put the papers inside the courts to make themselves warm, right? So that's what they have. But here, I think ours are a little bit smaller. Ours are between magazine and a broadsheet, smaller ones. I think we can't talk much about newspapers because we know them. They are numbered, page numbered, and we've got different sections, editorial page, we've got all opinions and all those. And also, at the same time, these newspapers can also cater for a specific group, right? There are some other specific papers that are only for a specific grouping, right? Nowadays, because you just have two, but you could have business types, only the whole paper. So you also can have these types of papers that are specifically for one grouping, right? So you can utilize them as an instructor for what you want to to extract. So I don't think this one we can go through the newspaper, the obvious, right? Because they do usually come daily, some of them are weekly, and also you have got the design advertisement there that are cost effective because of the nature of it. So for instruction, you could decide to say, okay, how you're going to utilize this. So we've got this. I think in Malawi, these are not common. What are called war newspapers. I don't think here we have seen them in here, but we have got other papers. I think they were popular a long time ago, but maybe other countries they are there. They are like the newspaper, but they are for the war, right? They are newspaper. It's like imagine a newspaper that it was designed to be just uh, placed on the board like this. People just read it. They only printed one side, right? But in here, I don't think we have this war newspaper, right? But in the other countries, you could have a front page or a war newspaper having different stories, and it will be on the board like this, and people will come and pause there and start reading some headlines and stories. Yeah. So here it's not common. This is an example of a war newspaper that could be like the way it's like assuming the room like this. Maybe it could not be as big as this, but it's similar to that, whereby you'll be on the wall, right? We don't have pages like side yao, side yao. We just have one side whereby people at I've seen this before, but I don't think in here. If you go in Europe, right? Europe, especially by in the movie theaters, you have actually like this one about movies now, stories about movies. You have like a movie theater now, you have a board, you have something like, and people will come and pause and start. I know you have all those posters again, but you would have something like that. Then you have got a newsletter, right? I don't know if we have time. Things almost up. I think a newsletter you already heard that we also have a study one here. Newsletter usually it just says generally used as an informational sources for neighborhood. I think a newsletter, if you see in our if you see in the journalism, you can assume as on the radio, when we say community radio, right? You know how community radio works, Community radio, the radio, is just for an area. You can have a community radio for only area for a night. Easy kukano. So all the content mabaga design. I think we have got the. I heard it about the radio. I've never heard it, but we have got some other small community radios. Community radios are like content designed for a specific grouping. So newsletter is like assuming it's a newspaper, but specific. The information you is down. For example, if you start getting and the accountants. And the difference is the distribution of a newsletter. Usually, it's different. I mean, the distributing newsletters through emails, right? They don't usually go like a newsletter. Like with Amazon, they will be sharing through mail, right? So, but usually you can have it printed. But the idea, I mean, the identity of it, you'll be having specific information that is targeting a specific society or institution, because especially most of the companies they have got their own newsletters, right? Whereby they'll be using them for either talking about their business adventures or updating their clients or something like that, right? So newsletters generally contain one main topic of interest to its recipients, right? And the electronically sent newsletters are via emails are called e-newsletters, right? So as I said, this is the most common one now. It's been a while where I've seen a newsletter, I had a copy. Newsletter, usually, I think it's what you have already seen my website. Do you want to subscribe for our newsletter, right? I mean, if you go by pages, different pages, If you go like even if you can CNN, and it's absolutely they have a mailing list. So they will ask you to subscribe so that they could send you their newsletter. So that could be used. Yeah, you could have a specific grouping of students that you want to instruct. Then you use the approach of, for this advantage, right? This could be direct, right? Because somehow, if you have a newspaper, you could say that, okay, did they receive the paper, right? Or did they? But this one, you have the emails, you are going to send them directly. And also, because you can use the email. Most of, if you go in the companies, most if something is sent through the email, is treated as a serious material, right? Usually, what you have share on WhatsApp, sometimes you tell a message about WhatsApp, but if it's on your email, it's a serious thing. So you could think about how this approach could be of advantage to whoever is using it. But nowadays, it's like the whole newsletter is more or less like you have to subscribe to have that. And so I think you could see more about this, and you have got specific images that you select for that, for your purpose, if there is a specific topic, right? There's a lot to talk about it. They will see later. Let me just conclude. This time I think is a wrap. You have got magazines, which is part of the periodicals. Maybe magazine is another periodical. Usually magazines, they come up monthly or after 2 months, right? So you have seen the magazine before. That's going to usually, it's more colorful. Magazines are more colorful, especially they make it take advantage of using of photographs. And you could use this because it's I mean, it will depend on the audience, as I say. For you to decide to say, I would like to use a magazine for this process. It means you are looking at your audience, right? Magazines, there are advantages of magazines. How do you know that there are advantages? When you go into Balosada Serebidi, have you ever seen a very old newspaper? You would be ya 2015. You will find it, but you can find the magazine ya 2015. Anybody? People will still take it and read it, even if it's 2015. That's how different the magazine is, because of that appealing nature. This is what it can be used for a very long time, right? While if you think about the newspaper, usually people they expect to see, to read recent developments. Once it's an old development, that means they are not, they are reluctant to read it. But if you see magazines, sometimes people will not even read, just to know that you need to know how to make your magazine better. I've seen it like entertainment magazines. People who have a collection of magazines whereby they'll just have a cover. Beyonce. She didn't do anything. Rihanna, oh my God, Rihanna, you find the people buying it. And they'll be reading. You know, she was walking somewhere. But you can see people could take time reading, looking at it. Yeah, but if you use other formats, you discover that imagine there was no picture, photograph. There were only text. How many people could have read it? Take time. I mean, they would not. But it's because of the format of the magazine, they do that. Now I'll end up with last but not least, but there are banners. I talked about banners before, but banners bound to be selbe. So usually, if it's something, I know they are usually used for advertising, exhibition, and other elements. So banners like this one, this is an example, right? You have the same design. It's like you're making a poster or whatever, but now this one is bigger. Then you can hang it somewhere. You have these lobes. And usually, if you see, this is a designer, one of the design, whereby it's going to have large text that you could read it from afar, right? So I'm saying it's depending, because when you talk about instruction, it's not that it's only going to be you. You could be that, okay, this instruction is going to be outside school your available. So you want to say something, so you write something, don't Alisa on it. So you got to put a poster kusogolo. You need to have something like this, like a banner. I think you have seen them before. Maybe the function. Eh? Chibana magic. It's not a good example for them to put a banner. Eh? For this setup, we are trying to give information to a large group. If you don't use overhead projector, if you want to have something like paper, if overhead projector, they would use Alisa, and you have to, it's much more expensive, because you use electricity. But what you got to do, you just have a banner like this one and put it behind. And that's the thing. So it's part of the ways. And then finally, talk about billboards. These are the billboards related to Amazon and sell. And you can see my design now, as I'm saying, as big as this. You to talk about count how many words are there. You can even literally read 1, 2, 3, 4, few of them. But there's the image and the text. But you could be able to read everything, and you could even get attracted to it, right? Because of that. So then you have got a brochure. Okay, that's the ending one, right? So these are the ones, I think, some of the ways how print media, because some they will say, for example, on the billboards, some of that, no, billboard can print media much. If you know how these are made, you discover it's print media. Because these ones, some are good small, but it's all about they use the, it's like the size of the image. That got my image, when you enlarge it, it's going to fit Malako. So it's like this, it's just a design that has been amplified to be placed on the board, but it's the same material that have been pre-splitted, right? Okay, so I think this is what I want to do. I will share this slide. You can also just add up, try to check other things, but this is what I wanted to talk about there. Unless if there are any other, any question, because we didn't even have a question. But it's time. If you exactly, I think you're having another class somewhere. Yeah. So I think let's end there for you to write to another class.